welcome. This is going to be the first episode in my new Why Do You Think That segment. So, the thought that I'll be explaining is that capitalism is a better economic structure than communism. I've already done some videos defining each one of those terms, so I'm just going to jump right into the reasons I think so. So the first idea I want to talk about is property rights. In communism, there is no private property. In capitalism, everything is someone's property. So the reason I think that private property is better is because to have communism and a lack of private property, someone needs to enforce that. Unless you do communism on a very, very small scale. I'm talking like maybe 100 people. We go to a commune, everybody works, pulls their weight, everyone gets what they need, everyone has a place to live, so on and so forth. On a large scale, however, you need to have someone that's going to enforce the idea of communal property. Every time it's been tried, it's been the state. I already talked about how the states generally don't do a very good job with that. You always get widespread death, you get political divisions, and the people that oppose the communist state always end up dead or exiled to Siberia. Now, like I said, small scale, it's a little different. For communism, you can strictly control who takes part in your group, right? So you're going to always make sure that people agree on the large ideas. That is absolutely integral to communism. Capitalism, on the other hand, requires as many people as possible to flourish, right? Everyone needs to own their own property, and everyone needs to be able to make a living, and everyone needs to be able to create a surplus, because that surplus can be used to support other people in their business endeavors, right? Now, this actually dovetails pretty nicely into the next topic that I want to compare the two on, which is how the individual fits into the ideology. I already said, now, for communism, the individual is much less important. Everyone needs to agree on virtually everything. So that the individual, you're going to have very little difference between people, very little diversity. Capitalism doesn't really care about your belief system, right? Capitalism cares about you making money and spending that money. Successful people in communism, well, there would be no successful people in communism, really, because everyone needs to be equal on the outcome front. But in that onset of communism, successful people are always labeled as oppressors. Successful people are branded as class traitors or greedy because they've kept all their resources to themselves. Where in capitalism, successful people are what drives everything. They're the ones that drive jobs. They create jobs through their businesses, through their successful businesses, that is. So those people are creating jobs, which in turn allows other people to be successful. So all people's success feeds off of one another, right? Individuals also are going to be the ones that drive technological advancement, which is my next topic here. Technological advancement in communist states is going to be completely controlled by the power, or the group that holds the power to decide where property goes, right? Which we already discussed is the state. Now, the state generally is not going to be pushing forward advanced technological advancement that helps people. They do what they decide is going to be helpful to the state, because they're the ones with all the power. They don't care about the individual. They care about themselves, the group in power. Now, with capitalism, on the other hand, there's a very clear difference, right? Because I already said that these people that are successful are the ones that are going to push making jobs and technological advancements. How does that happen? That happens through other people who have a surplus, who can invest or even be employed by these people with new ideas. So everyone is going to have to put forth effort to advance those technologies. Where we have the power in that is we get to decide what we want to help out, right? So any technological advancement is going to be pushed by the population of that country. You can't make new technologies in capitalism without a fair amount of community involvement. So we can weed out the ones we don't like and support the ones we do like. Again, in communism, the state's going to decide all that for you and you don't get a say. It's very important, actually. I don't know if I'm stressing it enough, but the idea that you're going to absolve your power to decide technology, or you're going to keep it and hold it tight to you. That's a big deal. Huge deal. It decides the future of your civilization. Switch gears a little bit more to a social aspect. How are they going to strive for equality across the board, right? I discussed already in a video about equal opportunity versus equality of outcome. So I won't delve too deeply into that idea, really, because I would encourage you, if you haven't watched that video, to go back and watch it. Kind of covers the basics of it, explains it, I hope, in a way that you can differ the two significantly. So communism, I already said, aims for equality of outcome. This means that no matter the effort you put in, you're going to get the same as everyone else. Capitalism, on the other hand, is more of a survival of the fittest, right? So whoever is going to put in the effort is going to survive. They're going to succeed, rather, in capitalism, which, coupled with complete equal opportunity, is clearly a better system. Clearly, just psychologically. If you work your ass off for something and the person next to you does nothing, virtually, and you get the same amount of that as them, it's not going to feel good. That's going to also breed resentment between the classes, which communism is supposed to be against class struggle. You're going to create a class struggle. The difference being the classes aren't going to be people who have things and people who do the work. It's going to be people who do the work and people who don't. You're taking material out of it. That doesn't make the problem any better. So why are we trying to push for it? It doesn't make any sense. Now, I mentioned that capitalism needs to have that equal opportunity. And I'm not saying that capitalism always does. Not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is capitalism naturally would desire that equal opportunity. The free market is going to decide what gets done, what gets advanced, who succeeds. Now, like I said, I understand that doesn't always happen. But it should, because capitalism will be more beneficial to everyone involved if everyone gets a fair shake. Because everyone wants a better society, or rather, let's assume people usually want a better society. You're going to want that equal opportunity because you need other groups of people, other individuals to come forth with ideas that you may not have, right? That's obvious. So equal opportunity is definitely important to capitalism, right? Without it, it's not going to be as powerful in pushing forward humanity. Now, another thing I want to talk about, which still has to do with the individual, kind of, not in the equality sense, but either way, it's so important in capitalism for everyone to be watchful and paying attention. They need to be aware of where their money is going. They need to be aware of what it's supporting. So if you've got a business or a company that is using slave labor overseas, you don't want to support that. Or at least you shouldn't. If you do support that, then you have no place in a civilized society anyway, right? So let's just assume no one wants that. Okay, so while you're not going to support a business that does that, so therefore it's going to go away, right? If you don't give them your money, because of that, they're going to realize it, and they're going to, even if it costs more, they're going to still need to make that money. Because they're not going to make any money if they're doing it that way, even if it's cheaper, because people aren't giving them money to buy the goods that are made overseas using slave labor. So these businesses that don't use that are going to be more successful. The free market will adjust for this, and people will not be doing that anymore. Vice versa, if you don't know they're doing it, you just like their product, you're going to be supporting that and you're not even going to realize it. That's a problem. So capitalism does require a very watchful population. It requires mature conversations about different business ethics that we would like to encourage. Now, communism, on the other hand, everything is going to be decided by the state. Everything. Because you need to agree with the population. You need to agree with the community. And we've already discussed these people in power. They're the ones that control the private property. They're the ones that you need to agree with. So if you don't agree with them, you become an outsider. And as I discussed in my communism video, outsiders are generally not treated very well in these countries, right? They always start with a violent revolution. They purge their political opponents. They purge people that own things. They purge people that are the successful people, because those people are seen as oppressors. So it's just a completely different mindset than capitalism. So I'm going to kind of switch gears here into more of my personal belief that I started this with, which is capitalism is a better economic structure than communism. Why you would think that communism is going to work out after so many years of it being tried in various locations and it never working, ever? You think that's better than capitalism is beyond me. Capitalism is now labeled as racist, which is absurd. I just talked about how equal opportunity is absolutely essential to making capitalism more effective. So I do not understand how you could possibly tie in racism to a system that has literally nothing to do with that. If anything, it should be encouraged in capitalism, right? So, moving on from that point, communism discussed how it requires violent revolution from the mouth of Marx himself. Capitalism comes about naturally, right? You have these currencies that are created naturally, and mercantilism that gave rise to capitalism. All this was natural things going on through the production of things on the individual level. So, if you remove the history from it and are presented communism with no previous information, it's just the idea that everything is communal property, everyone's going to work and get what they need. Sounds great. But that removes the idea of human psychology from it entirely. Humans are created equal in the sense that everyone has equal rights. Everyone has the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Now, that does not mean that everyone has the same capabilities or skills. When you try to go for equal outcome, it is communism, socialism, whatever. It doesn't work, ever. It's never worked in the past. It always leads to death. So, I understand the seductive force behind communism because it sounds good. However, it completely ignores a huge factor, whereas capitalism, it is much more natural. If someone works for something, they're generally going to get it. It generally works out. And their success eggs on other people's success. Everything ties in together. So we have to start looking at things with more nuance. Otherwise, these ideas are in great risk of becoming completely corrupted. Which was the whole basis for me starting this podcast to begin with, right? I wanted to have more discussions and define these terms because that's important. You can't just spout nonsense without actually at least having a basic understanding between the two people about what the topic is. So, capitalism, there's nothing innately bad about it. You just need the population to pay attention. People need to care about where their money is going. People need to pay attention to where their money is going. Which also ties into another idea, really, that these big international corporations we have now, it's not necessary. Sure, it is part of capitalism, but capitalism was also these small mom and pop shops, these small corner stores that were in your local hometown when you were growing up, that were run by families in the area, and they only had the one store, and that's what they focused on, and that creates jobs in the area, and also those people live there, so it's just going to continuously feed the economy, which is why I say you need to pay attention to where your money's going, because that money is going to what? It's going to your family and friends in the community. That's going to put their kids through school. That's going to put food on their table, your friends and family's table. These corporations, everything becomes cheaper through them. Don't get me wrong. You got this better system of distribution and all that. But they're not going to treat their employees as well, generally. And that wealth is spread across a much wider area, which of course sounds like a good thing. Don't get me wrong. The problem is, it's not going to have as much of a heavy impact on your community as it would if you were to start a small corner store to sell groceries and maybe some non-grocery items, whatever that may be, than if a Walmart moved in. More of that money is going to stay there in your area. That's a good thing, right? But those are options. Both of those things are routes that capitalism can go. You need to make that decision on where you're going to put your money. Do you want to drive over to Walmart, or do you want to go over to this small family-owned business that's been there your whole life, but you never really went over to because it's just easier to go to Walmart, it's a little cheaper? Well, it matters. Just because it's cheaper over there doesn't mean that it's better for you. Doesn't mean that it's better for the country. Doesn't mean it's better for your community. So we have to be conscious in these decisions. That's why capitalism seems to get so out of control, and people tend to label it as evil somehow, when in all reality it's us. It's our fault that all this bad stuff has happened. So that's important. We need to pay attention to that. Communism, on the other hand, all that individual responsibility is ripped away from you. Well, actually, it's absolved. You give it up. You completely give it up, and you're putting that trust in other people. We tend to idolize these people in government, when in all reality they're just people. They're just people that make just as many mistakes as you do. They're not perfect. They're not our social betters. They're just people. That's it. And unfortunately, we give them power. So do you really want someone making all the calls for you? Really? Because we've seen how that goes. It generally doesn't go well. So capitalism is by far better. By far. Communism has never worked. I can't see it ever working because, in my opinion, really, true communism is impossible anyway. Because you'd have to have a massive scale of people agreeing on the same principles. How likely is that to happen? Not very likely. We can't even agree on some pretty basic ideas anymore. You have to give all that power to the state to make those calls for you, and that is totalitarianism. The government is going to have to decide everything. They're going to have to decide where resources go. It doesn't matter what you think, or what you want, or what your family wants, or what your friend down the street wants. It matters what the state wants. With capitalism, it is an economic structure that does not require the government to be involved. That is on us. We elect these people that believe in government intervention, right? If we don't want that, don't vote for those people. There's no power like that in communism. In capitalism, as an economic structure, all of the power is in our hands. We decide everything as the consumers. If you don't like an idea, don't give your money to it. Simple as. In communism, you don't like an idea, you better not say it out loud. And that's always how it's been throughout history, every time this stuff has been tried. So we need to pay attention. We need to pay attention. So, that concludes it. That explains why I think capitalism is a better economic structure than communism.